One of the few things to come out of 2020 that is actually any good is the requirement for the CIA and US Air Force within 180 days to release all their unclassified papers on UFOs. And the CIA have just done it. But they've done it really badly. Can you believe they released their documents on a CD-ROM in PDF format, which is unsearchable? So there's hundreds of these PDFs dating back from the early 1950s, which you just have to open one by one by one. So on your behalf, I've spent the morning clicking on these damn PDFs to see if there's anything interesting. And here's what I've found. Here's a report from 1965. 2 UFOs were seen 10 miles apart southeast of Patuxent. Sorry for the pronunciation. Approaching at a high rate of speed and disappeared from the radar screen. A single UFO picked up 39 southwest of Patuxent. Altitude estimated somewhere between 3,000 and 25,000 feet, approaching the base at an estimated speed of 6,000 miles per hour. UFO lost from screen 10 miles out. Yeah, cool. Here's a routing and record sheet from 27th of May 1976. Regarding our recent discoveries, such material of which is of interest, in particular those attached. Our sources felt work might be of interest for the US government that should be evaluated by this agency. The source, good spook term, felt that the UFO should be analysed outside the context of the UFO connection, if necessary, to resolve it from a controversial subject. As before, we have faced the problem of having UFO-related material which is deemed potentially important for the US and S&T sources. And so it goes on, a typical kind of CIA report. And there's a lot from Russia. The US Embassy or whoever does the work for them watches a lot of Russian TV and just kind of hands back anything interesting they find. This is a good one. In brackets, Uglanov. Finally, rumours perhaps have reached me to the effect that until recently, a number of top scientists have been enlisted into a study of Russian UFOs at the disposal of the Ministry of Defence. I'm talking about some fragments of whole articles which are being kept secret in hangars and underground tests. I have no idea what they're talking about. That sounds kind of interesting. And here's one that's more revealing as a picture rather than anything else. It confirms that there's an NICA, or National Investigation Committee of Aerial Phenomenon. Ooh. And there's a lot from 1953, because in 2021, they can now be declassified. They're not very interesting. There must have been a lot of sightings in 1953. And here's a report from January that says, as a result of its considerations, the panel concludes that the evidence presented on unidentified flying objects shows no indication that these phenomena constitute a direct physical threat to national security. We've heard that before. And here's one that's getting quite a lot of publicity on YouTube right now, and it's kind of good. It's from a place called Ryazan Oblast, wherever that is. It says, a highly powerful explosion rang out at midnight, 12th of April, near the small city of Savovso. The shockwave roared down the street, ripping off roofs in some areas and knocking out windows, even the frames. According to eyewitness accounts, multi-sensory blocks rocked as if in an earthquake. It sounds like just a meteor blowing up like Chelyabinsk, but who knows? So there were hundreds, and I just went through this endless PDF list and went, that one. You know, they don't have any titles, they're just a PDF number. But I did find this one, and this one's kind of good. This was dated from 17th March 1960 from Sweden. And it's a report from a Swedish observer who says, the luminous object, which was observed shortly after 2000 hours on the 6th of March by the crew of a plane, a Swedish airline, is judged to be an unidentified satellite. The point of light was also observed from an observatory in a place in Sweden. I made the discovery just before the object disappeared, said the sighter. It seemed to be a satellite, and I'm sure that it was not a shooting star or meteor. But it goes on. Between 05:15 and 05:27 hours, he observed two objects which came from the north and were moving in southwesterly direction. Their movement was slow, but otherwise was initially not entirely unlike that of a satellite he had seen before. Suddenly, however, the direction of movement changed and the object turned such that they were going back in the same direction that they came from. One of the pilots even caught a third luminous object of the same kind. And another witness who saw this UFO said, "I observed the satellite in the northwest and it was moving in a horizontal direction. But then it went straight down at a right angle and disappeared." So that's just my initial look at this CIA dump. My views on what they've done. I think somebody at the CIA just typed in flying saucer and UFO into a totally unclassified database of these reports and have just dumped it on the public. I think the real interesting stuff is still classified and has not been released. Let's see what the US Air Force come up with in their mandatory period of 180 days. It could be interesting. I guess the truth is out there.